It is now 17 minutes after 8 o'clock. This is Morning Express and time for us to focus and look at your money. Now, 2020 has certainly been a very difficult year for businesses and employees as well, with things not going as expected. So joining me this morning, we have Waithaka Katumia, who's the CEO for Centonomy, to just give us projections and look at how to project for 2021. Good morning, Waithaka, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Morning, Mike. Thank you for having me.
I can see that you're now using and utilizing your new office space, which is your car. Maybe let's start off with one big lesson that COVID-19 has taught you with things having to work differently.
Mike, I've been kicked out of the house. I was told you cannot shout in the house in the morning. People are still sleeping. So just for you, but I think it's also, this is a thing that we have to realize in business, even personally. In times of crisis, in times that are different, like what we're going through right now, you do everything you can. Mike, I would prefer to be asleep at this time.
Right.
But because I know what is coming up in the year, because of the work that we know is ahead of us, you do whatever you can to get your brand, to get your business out there. So if it means working from your car, work from your car. If it means working, whatever you must do, do it so that you can be able to build. So yeah, it definitely has been a tough year. But the truth of the matter is, Mike, it's not been the same for everybody. There are some businesses that have thrived in this year. There are individuals who have thrived. If you think about it, everybody who's employed, you received a tax break in this year. And there are some people whose businesses were not affected. In fact, they increased. And so the tax break simply meant that they received a higher income for this year. So it's difficult for us to say on a global basis that everybody has had a hard time. What it is that it has been a different time. And when there are changes, Mike, in the market, that means that there are opportunities as well. And it's time for us to begin to see where are those opportunities as we move forward.
All right, and maybe we'll start off. I'm sure there are those who've suffered very huge losses, closing of businesses, as much as there are those who've also, had a good year, financially speaking. But let's start with possibly those who have had a negative effect because of COVID-19. We've had people who've lost their jobs and possibly are wondering, how do I even start off in 2021? When you've had a major financial hit, where does one begin picking the pieces from?
From where you are. So, look, Mike, I'm not trying to be insensitive in any way. I'm trying to be realistic. And the thing is, Mike, people have had tough years before. Whatever shock comes into your life, whether it is in your personal life or your business life, it is time for you to re-strategize and to rethink. Look, Mike, there's a time for us to be able to say, wow, oh no, 2020 was a tough year. It was hard. Yes, we can accept that. But we also have to then get up and say, what are we going to do in 2021? It's so easy to get stuck in a place of, oh, this is so hard. This one we have never gone through. This is unheard of. Yes, but shocks have come before. And it is time, in times like this, that you need to accept that shock. If you need help, get the help that you need, even mental help. Even just simply talking to a friend, talking to a mentor can make a huge difference. Get through that. And then begin to say, what are we going to do in this new year?
Right.
I'll give you an example of our business, Centonomy. Ours was a huge shock. We had been planning to move online by mid-year 2020. This was part of our long-term strategy. But 3 months before that, in March, oh my goodness, 3 months, we had not yet set up the structures, we had not yet set up the strategies, we had not yet actually put in place everything ready to move online, but we were forced. That weekend, I think it's still March 13th, I believe is when President Uhuru came on the air and said all schools are shut down, no more large meetings. That was, I think, a Sunday. That Tuesday, We had a class that was already registered. They were already in our classes. They were waiting to come and actually continue with their learning. And we were told you can't have them in your offices. You can't have them in your training centers around the country. We had to move immediately. If we did not move, our business would have been dead. And so in a 2-day period, we brought in consultants who taught us to use this same system we're using right now, Zoom, to transfer our trainings online. If we didn't do that, we would have been in a very tough position. So, Mike, when it comes to times of stress, times of shocks in whatever market yourself or your business in, you have to accept it, deal with it, and then re-strategize. So it's to say, where is the opportunity? What do we need to do now to stay alive? What do we need to do now to keep moving forward?
All right, and there's what I call quick mental appreciation. This is where, when there's a shock, you appreciate mentally that it has happened. There's not much you can do about it. Yes. None of us can change COVID-19. But talk to us, Waithaka, about taking advantage of adversity or difficult times like this, because within this period that many are calling hard, there are those who saw opportunities, took advantage, and guess what? They're smiling today.
They are. And it was simply to understand, look, it's really unfortunate because I know there's a lot of, how would I say, there are people who take advantage, unfortunately, in illegal ways, but there are also those who take advantage legally. And for instance, if I don't know, I know, Mike, you might know more than I do because you guys are in the media and you do the reporting. But the story that came to mind is that within a 3-month period from March to June this year, I remember following the news on your network and remember hearing that in a very short turnaround period of time, Kenya became a net exporter of PPE, personal protective equipment. And that meant that there were businesses that re-strategized and said, where is there a need in the market? And they saw an opportunity and said, you know what, we don't have enough PPE in this country, we don't have enough PPE in this region. And so they took an opportunity and said, look, very shortly, we need this stuff. How do we get it out there? And you're seeing companies that actually started importing, others built, restructured their equipment in their factories to be able to produce this. This is the kind of quick thinking that actually makes a huge difference. So it's about looking into the market and say, what will be needed now? Mike, look, everybody needs to be watching your program and continuing to listening to the news to see what are we trying to forecast in the next couple of months. And what we know is this. If you look at the logistics of the vaccines that are going around the world, it will take a while for these to kick in, and it means that we will still be in this semi-lockdown and possible even harder lockdowns for a longer period of time. The estimations that we're hearing are anywhere from 6 to 12 months, so another year or a half year of this. What does that mean? What are the things that are needed right now? What are the areas in which people are looking for information? Another area that has hugely grown is the entertainment industry. If you look online, all the entertainers are looking and saying, where can we find our audiences? They would usually come for a concert. Now they don't have a concert to do. What do? We put our concert online. Let's get sponsors. Let's get people involved. And that's the kind of innovative thinking that I'm talking about.
Right.
Mike, we can do this if we are focused.
All right. And, well, just a quick reminder for those of us who are watching, wherever you're watching us from, the phone lines are now open. We're going to have the numbers displayed on your screen. You're welcome to call. Maybe it sounds like we're just having a motivational talk, but when you look at things on the ground, maybe it is completely different. And I'm going to be asking Waithaka questions on things like loans and practical examples of how one does not have rent come January. We have schools opening. We are likely to have parents having, again, January, being a very tough month because maybe they had not budgeted or thought how their children are going to get back to school. But the phone lines are open. You can also reach us via social media. The hashtag is KTN Morning Express, or you can tweet me, and that's at Michael G. Gitonga if you have any questions for Waithaka. Waithaka, to move this from just an inspiring talk, on a morning show, to practical. There are those who have loans, or maybe let's even come closer to home. There are parents who are looking at January with a lot of fear and anxiety, given that students are going back to school. And let's face it, they've been home since March. Some of them have put on weight, so their uniform is no longer usable. So all these expenses coming all at once. And this is with the backdrop of the fact that maybe revenue was not coming in as we have expected it. How do we practically get our children back to school?
Mike, this is time to work like we've never done before. I'm working from my car. Let me give you a practical example. There's a young man called Nelson. He usually helps me out to fix the cars, and you know how it is in Nairobi. You take your car to the garage and you have a guy. So Nelson is my guy. And Nelson realized that Waithaka is not coming. Waithaka is working from home, so he's not driving his car as much. So this guy, Nelson, came to where I'm seated right now. And instead of waiting for me at the garage to show up and tell him the story, he came and found me. Nelson came and told me, Waithaka, he was looking at the car from outside our gate over here. And he said, Waithaka, I'm looking at your car. There's some work that needs to be done. He came looking for the work. Instead of sitting in the garage and waiting for Waithaka to show up and to ask for help, Nelson came to look for help. He came and said, Waithaka, I know the last time you were here, the car was making this other sound. From what I can see, it has gotten a few scratches. Can I buff that out? He was looking for work. Rather than sitting and waiting for work to come to him, he's looking for it. So that's the same attitude that we must have in our jobs, in our businesses, is to go and find the work. If we sit back and wait for things to happen to us, we sit back and wait for the government to come up with a solution, we sit and wait for a new election in Nairobi City, that's the wrong attitude. The attitude is to go and find the work. And so for those who are looking at those opportunities, take advantage of what the government has been able to do. If you remember, earlier on in this year, the government was able to talk about having a moratorium on loans. So don't just run away from the people that you owe money. Go and talk to them, especially the institutions, and say, look, we're in a tough position. How can we restructure? How can we be able to help us to repay this loan probably over a longer period of time? Or how can we take a break right now while I try and sort out school fees? When things start moving forward, we're able to pick it up. So that because of those changes that the government made, you're not going to be listed anymore on CRB, but the issue is you have to engage with the financial institution. One of the things that we often do is we don't engage. I can't repay my loan, so I don't call, I don't pick up my phone anymore. It is time to engage and to say, what can we do to adjust? And you will be surprised what the financial institutions will do. Let me tell you, if you talk to any bank, you talk to any SACCO, it is harder to auction somebody and find that it's so much work. So it's actually easier when the person who has borrowed comes to them and says, you know, I'm in a tough position. What can we do? That helps them to sort it out. Yes.
All right, Waithaka, now, one of the other things that maybe we need to talk about is, one, rebranding themselves and ensuring that they are marketable, because you might find yourself out of a job. And like you've mentioned, Nelson could have sat there and said, oh, you know what, with COVID, people are not driving around. Poor me, let me go back up country and see whether I can, become a farmer. And nothing wrong with being a farmer, but point here being, there are those of us who have skills that we possibly can repackage and not necessarily wait for the employer to give us a job, but we can go out there and look for them. What advice would you give to anybody who has skill that can be put together, and how to put it out there for people to know that you exist?
Mike, let me tell you something. So we run a program at Centonomy called the Centonomy Career Hub. And it's essentially the program is about intrapreneurship. What does that mean? When you have entrepreneurship, those are people who go out and start businesses and create demand in the market to take advantage of opportunities. But we've realized that as an employee, you need to have that same attitude of intrapreneurship. What does that mean? Within your business, are you solving problems? I'm an employer, and let me tell you this, Mike. When somebody within my team is thinking and trying to solve problems rather than bringing me problems, that person, we want to keep them on board. Let me tell you, that person is more valuable than, you don't even want to go into the market to look for somebody else. So when somebody in your workplace, you need to be solving problems just like an entrepreneur. It's not to sit back and wait for your boss to come and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is your role in it. Go to your boss with solutions. Go to that person who's in leadership and offer them. So let me tell you, team members who bring me solutions rather than problems, those are the ones you want to keep on board, because that means that there's more than one person thinking about the business than the person who's in charge.
Absolutely. And I'll pause you there, Waithaka, because I want to take a call.
No problem.
They say that you are paid for the problems you solve, not the ones that you bring on board. So let me take a call from Kakai Rollins. Kakai Rollins, to your comment or question.
Okay. First, saizi kwa hii issue ya COVID, si lazima tunangojea. Hello?
Kaendelea.
Okay. Sasa wakati wa COVID, mostly wengi tumetoka job, tuko home, tuna work from home. Ukibaki unangojea ati upate pesa, ni lazima hustle for it seriously, kwa sababu somebody like me sijaifanya networking, but right now I'm doing networking issue, fibers and whatever. Ni mimi mwenye natafuta kazi. But right now, at least the business in a boom simba. End of the day, I'm making some few coins to feed my family. At least me raise school fees for my family. Because ukingojea job, things may change. World totally may change. So I want to urge my fellow youths, what did you work self-entrepreneurship? It's easier for them to make their living poor than ile kungojea mtu anasiasa walitifuda hapo au hustle kwa njia zingine. The best thing, they should work for themselves. At least maisha yatakuwa poa.
All right. Thank you very much. Kakai Rollins there agreeing with Waithaka that it's not time to sit back, but it's time for us to literally go out there and make sure that we find something to do. Waithaka, for somebody who feels they are gifted, they are skilled, but somehow they have no way of letting people know that they have that, they're sitting at home with a skill that they feel they can do. Where does one start in repackaging themselves?
Mike, let me tell you, if there's one thing that the constant lockdowns and working from home has done, it gives you time to learn a new skill.
Oh, yes.
And let me say this clearly so that we don't get any mistake about this. Running a business is a skill. It is time, if you're going to get into business, we can no longer just do this, the hustle lifestyle. The hustle lifestyle does not grow from generation to generation. We now need to build the skill set of running a business, to understand what are the key principles of running a business, such as understanding, do you have a market? Do you have a space in which there's demand for your product? Do you have the right cash flows? And let me tell you, one of the greatest principles which we train in our entrepreneurship program at Autonomy, this idea of understanding your break-even point. Because if you misunderstand many of these principles, you might have a good idea, you might have the market, you might have the skill set that you have. But if you go into business without understanding how business works, you find yourself in a very tough position. So it's not just about jumping into business. You have to learn before you get into it. Definitely, Mike, let me tell you, you know, sometimes you're under pressure, you just start. But that doesn't mean that you remain in ignorance. Once you start, you must still commit yourself to the learning process. There are many books that are available. Go online onto YouTube, go onto places like this to learn how a business works. Come to Zentonomy if you must. Look, the point is this: we cannot stay in ignorance and expect our businesses to work.
Right.
It is time for Kenyans to sit down, get a book on how business works, so that when you start your business, it actually benefits you.
And what is your take on a hustler nation? And I'm not looking at this from a political perspective, but the fact that we seem to have a school of thought that we even call it a side hustle. We even, you know, I see you shaking your head. Maybe what are your thoughts on being hustlers?
Mike, this breaks my heart. Henry Ford, Michael, started the Ford Motor Company, and he innovated around it and especially began to bring the motor vehicle to the masses. Huh? Henry Ford's grandchildren and great-grandchildren are still benefiting from the work that he did then. The Ford Motor Company was not a side hustle. It was a business. We're talking about hundreds of years of business. And that's because the internal structures were in place so that wealth moves from generation to generation. So that Michael, people talk about this and they say that there's no money for investment, there's no capital. Michael, let me tell you, in your own newspaper at Standard Media Group, on your own TV station, we hear of business deals of billions of shillings and sometimes even dollars being invested into companies that are in Kenya, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Where did that money come from? It means there's money for investment. The problem is that our businesses are not structured to receive that money. And that's one of the skill sets that we're talking about in running a business. If your business is structured for growth, you will receive investment.
Right.
But the problem is that this side hustle, that hustle mentality, cannot absorb investment. So it is time for us to shift our hustle mentality so that money can flow into your business. Absolutely. Investors cannot invest in your business if it is not structured to absorb it. So that's why I was shaking my head, Mike. We have to get our businesses right.
Okay, and the question that I'm going to be asking you shortly is whether poverty is a mindset or it is an environmental thing or whatever. But let me take a call from Samuel Owio in Kisii. Samuel, to your comment or question.
The question that I'm going to be asking hello?
Yes, Samuel.
Yes.
Go right ahead. And kindly put off your TV.
Okay. Nilikuwa nauliza kwa sababu juu ya hizi mambo ya loan, nimesikia anaongea kuhusu institutions ya kupeana loan. Mm-hmm. Na nilikuwa nauliza, we have these companies, online loan lenders. Na hapa loan lenders hatujui wako wapi, uende uongee nayo ukiwa na loan. So, na wako quick kuweka watu kwa CRB na wanafanya business yetu inakoma kwa sababu ya hizi mambo ya CRB. Sasa huwezi kopa loan kuinua business yako. Sasa kuhusu hao watu wa online, anaweza ongea namna gani kuhusu hao?
Aya, sawa. Asante sana. Hopefully you got that, Waithaka. Did you get the question or do I repeat it?
I did. No, I got.
Go ahead.
That's a tough one. Let me admit it's a tough one because often the lines of communication to the online lenders can be a bit murky. However, in my understanding, most of them should have an office. They should have a place that you can be able to contact them. So it is about actually picking up the phone and calling and just simply saying, this is my position. What can we do to restructure? That would be my advice at this point. If you remember, as I said, the government had actually talked about the fact that people should not be listed in this year, simply because it has been a major shock to the economy. So my advice would be, if it is a reputable, actual organization that you have borrowed from, they should have an office and they should have a contact line. It is to reach out to them, send them a message on your phone and just say, how can you help me with my loan at this point, because I may not have a way forward on that.
All right, we're coming to mindset in just a bit, but Waithaka, isn't that where businesses are headed? You know, we are in an environment where, for instance, if we talk about retail, we want to buy things that we can see and touch. However, where we are headed is online. We have the likes of Jumia, we have the likes of Alibaba, where you literally just see a picture and you order on trust. But maybe speak to the fact that we are moving from and now I'm just referring to his question, where we have loan lenders who are online, you can't see them, you can't go to their office, but they already have a system in place where you can respond and they will either give you the loan or not.
Look, Mike, the environment has completely changed, as you have mentioned. And for, as long as we are in this digital space, and I think for many businesses, we are going to remain in this digital space, we have to begin to engage with potential customers, with potential clients in this digital environment. We can't close our eyes and say that things are going to magically change and say that, oh, we're just waiting for that vaccine to hit so that business can change. No, I must applaud the hospitality industry who have managed to convince Kenyans to go on holiday, even during COVID. They've used guerrilla tactics. I don't know, Mike, whether you've experienced this, where if you go onto social media, it feels like everybody is at the coast or in Savo or in Masai. Have you felt like
Absolutely.
that, Mike? I don't know.
I've actually been wondering how people doing it, yet I've been in Nairobi all this time.
This is what they are using tactic. This is brilliant marketing. They found a few influencers and told them come for free. Those guys didn't travel there on their own money. They found a few influencers and said, come take photos and tell people everybody is in Mombasa, everybody is in Savo, everybody. And so we go online and it feels like, oh my goodness, I'm missing out. And so those who are in the hospitality industry are fighting for their lives. We must have that same attitude, that same grit. When you're talking about mindset, if you have the skill set of how to run the business, and then you're looking at the opportunities that are in front of you, that's what we're talking about. So these guys are saying, I know how to run a business, means I have to get clients on board. Now, how do we get them here? Look, if I put out a marketing campaign telling people to come, it doesn't show. But if I show people are here and enjoying themselves, I love our Kenyan hospitality industry. They have done a great job.
All right. As we wind up, Waithaka, we are out of time. There's the question of whether poverty is a mindset. Do you agree it's a mindset? And if indeed it is a mindset, how do we focus ourselves so that it no longer is a mindset?
Michael, we need to begin, and one of the great positives that has come out of this social media age is that you don't, the example, I don't have to be in Masai Mara to experience it necessarily in the same way. It shows me that there's a lifestyle that I don't have right now. And then what that does is it forces me to think, how did that person get to where they are? Many times we can take that on board and say, oh, this is the privileged, or this is for only the few. But there are those among us who have the mindset to say, I can change my current position. I can change my future. And those are the people who are going to find success. When they look at themselves and say, I'm not happy where I am, but I want to go to where that place is, how did they get there? So you go online and you listen to their stories. Instead of watching all these failed videos, I don't know what, only music online. I'm not saying don't listen to music. I'm just saying fill your mind with things that are going to make you a better person that's out there. And that's why, Mike, we are having this discussion this morning, because each one of us has an opportunity every day that we wake up to change our current situation by setting targets and goals for the year. As you start 2021, Mike, everybody who's listening to us, sit down and set a target for your life, for your business, so that you're aiming at something. You're aiming towards a specific goal. If you don't have a target, you're aiming at nothing and you'll hit it every single time.
All right. Waithaka Gatumia, we're out of time. Your parting shot very briefly.
Hey, guys, this is a time to learn. Come to centonomy.com. We've got lots of programs that are available to help you on this journey of wealth creation, centonomy.com, and you learn about business, personal finance and investment, and career development. Mike, if we are sitting at home, we must be learning. We must be able to learn, and you can now learn online, and you'll be learning with our international audience. Mike, I forgot to tell you this. When we moved online, we were shocked as you are seeing somebody who's logging on from Denmark, somebody logging on from South Africa, somebody logging on from Australia, from Canada. We have people literally from around the world in our classes, and the experience from all these different environments makes a huge difference. So this is the time to learn. Come to centonomy.com. We're going to have a great time in 2021 if you decide to.
Waithaka Gatumia, always a pleasure hosting you. Thank you very much. And in case I don't see you between now and next year, I take this opportunity to wish you a happy, prosperous 2021.
Happy New Year, Mike. As always, a pleasure.
Thank you very much. That's Waithaka Gatumia right there, CEO for Centonomy, joining us just to give us an overview of how to start our finances, well, within financial intelligence in 2021. But let's now change focus and take a look at what's making headlines internationally. And we start off in the U.S., where U.S. President Donald Trump has signed